Hello and welcome back to Humans in 5.
A couple of weeks back, we talked about the process of facial reconstruction, how it's used in forensic contexts, and how, in many ways, the success of reconstructions depend on their intended audience. This week, we're revisiting the theme of reconstructions to walk you through the ups and downs of rebuilding a fossil skeleton.
So why do researchers reconstruct the skeletons of fossil species? Well, quite frankly, they do it because it's pretty rare that a complete skeleton is preserved in the fossilization process. Depending on environmental conditions, the skeletons of people who died 20 years ago may completely disappear, so the bones of organisms that lived millions of years ago have a pretty slim chance of being found intact.
As always, reconstructions depend on a solid understanding of the relationship between muscle and bone. Anatomical knowledge of human bodies is pretty deep, but this is not always the case for other living primates. Understanding the variation between the bodies of modern humans, our sister species like Neanderthals, and our living primate cousins like gorillas is the foundation of reconstructing a fossil skeleton.
It's not just knowing muscle and bone that counts either. Understanding how bone responds in life can greatly affect how reconstructions are put together. A classic example was one of the early attempts at reconstructing the skeleton of a Neanderthal man whose remains were found in a cave called La Chapelle in France.
This Neanderthal skeleton belonged to a middle-aged man, but researchers in the early 1900s recreated his reconstruction as if he were very old, with a curved spine and a head that jutted forward. Neanderthals also have a very pronounced brow ridge, which in the 1900s was thought to represent low intelligence and a brutish way of life.
More recent analyses paint a different picture. Firstly, this man suffered from a form of osteoarthritis, which would make his skeleton look prematurely old. Secondly, he has a degenerative joint disease, which would have affected his posture. Given the challenge that this man had during his life, the fact that he lived into middle age suggests that other community members helped him. Unlike the brutish life that previous researchers had created, this man lived in a caring community.
Reconstructing parts of the skeleton of past species is made even more challenging when only small sections of bone are preserved. Whilst we can borrow biomechanical data from living primates and from other fossil species, sometimes reconstructions aren't as neat as they could be.
The partial skeleton of Ardipithecus ramidus, a human relative who lived 4.4 million years ago, was analyzed in 2009. Part of this analysis included an extensive digital reconstruction of the pelvis of the skeleton, as the pelvis was crushed and distorted when it was excavated. Researchers concluded that this skeleton displayed the earliest evidence of bipedalism.
This was a big claim and caused a big debate. Many researchers reported that the extensive reconstruction of the pelvis was not accurate, and that other parts of the skeleton, such as the knee position, did not support suggestions of bipedality. This case showed the academic and the wider world that even with complex digital models, reconstructions very much depend on the person creating them.
We hope today's episode has you thinking about just how challenging it is to walk with fossil species, and we'll see you next time on Humans in 5.
And don't forget to subscribe!